Burkina Faso's gold once fed Western coffers. Now it could fuel BRICS' war on the dollar. Here's why it matters. In this video, we are going to look at how Burkina Faso's gold, over 80% of its exports, may be the key to BRICS' de-dollarization dream. Under Traore's leadership, the country is demanding control over its wealth and rejecting IMF-style debt traps. For BRICS, that makes Burkina Faso more than symbolic. It makes it strategic. Imagine gold sold in yuan or a BRICS currency instead of dollars. That's not just trade policy, that's a tectonic shift in global finance. And the fact that Burkina Faso is even being considered shows how fast the world is changing. To understand why Burkina Faso's name is even in the same conversation as BRICS, Faso entering BRICS are so significant, you need to look at China's broader game plan in Africa. For 2 decades, China has been carefully and steadily expanding its footprint across the continent. While the West often framed years ago, nobody would have imagined that a landlocked country with one of the lowest GDPs in the world would even be mentioned in the same sentence as BRICS. Today, it's not only being mentioned, it's being taken seriously. That alone shows how much the global order is shifting. Power is no longer defined solely by GDP or military strength. Sometimes, it's about courage, vision, and the ability to inspire others. Burkina Faso, under Captain Traore, has become a beacon for nations across the global south that feel ignored, exploited, or dismissed. Its story is proof that even the smallest players can demand a seat at the table if they're bold enough. Burkina Faso's BRICS dream is more than geopolitics. It's a revolution of dignity. By challenging France, rejecting IMF chains, and demanding sovereignty over its gold, this small nation has forced the world to pay attention. Whether or not China has formally opened the door, the whispers alone prove how fast the global order is shifting. The real story isn't just about membership, it's about Africa rising, BRICS expanding, and the West's monopoly on power finally breaking. So if you want to keep following history as it unfolds in real time, hit subscribe, share this video, and stay tuned.